According to Morningstar, over half the people turning age 65 will need some type of long-term care in their lifetimes. And 14% will stay in long-term care for more than 5 years. In many cases, spending more than $250,000 on their senior living arrangements. The statistic is staggering for men, but even higher for women. When people reach the age of retirement, there are many decisions to make going forward. Certainly, health and financial decisions are very important. But perhaps the most important decision a retiree has to make is choosing their living arrangements. Most retirees want to stay in their home as long as they are physically able. But what happens when aging in place is no longer possible? You've heard the names independent living, assisted living, and nursing home. But how do those options differ from one another? Which one is right for you? And when is it time to move from one level of care to a higher level of care? How will you afford top-tier care for your loved ones when the time is right? What risks are associated with senior living, and how can you prevent caregivers from taking advantage of your vulnerabilities? When we return from commercial break, we'll hear from our experts about how to navigate the maze of senior living options. This episode is all about how to stay in control of your golden years so you can age without rage. Stay tuned. We have with us Susie Springer, the Social Services Manager for the Department of Social Services. And we have Sean Dwyer. What's your role with Social Services?
I'm a supervisor for Adult Protective Services.
Okay, now what does a supervisor for Adult Protective Services do?
I have 6 staff that work underneath me, and what they do is several of them investigate abuse, neglect, and exploitation of the elderly and disabled, and then others work several of the different programs. One of them also does she's what's called the adult home specialist, and she basically looks to ensure compliance of the rules and regulations at the assisted care homes and family care homes and the daycares. And we offer help. We offer help to lots of different people.
I remember a relative who was being abused in a nursing home, and she said that the caregiver in the nursing home said that if she said anything, he would be there when they weren't there, and he would take care of her in a not very nice way. Mm-hmm. He intimidated her while he was taking her Oxycontin. He's taking her painkillers and telling her, if you say anything, I'm going to retaliate. Mm-hmm. And in fact, he hit her a couple of times. Mm-hmm. The family put a camera in her room, mm-hmm. and it was in a state where that was legal, mm-hmm. and the caregiver went to prison. But
smart thinking.
I can understand, I know both of you can, if you're in a nursing home, you're dependent on your caregivers and you're being abused, and they tell you point blank, if you say anything, I'm going to be here at 12 o'clock tonight. Nobody else is going to be here. How frightening would that be?
I think it'd be very frightening.
But that is also something that we actually
Yes.
look into, because
Mm-hmm.
and if we find those situations to be true like that, we give that information to law enforcement, and again, we work hand in hand with them. We'll give them any information that we find, and if someone ends up being arrested, then so be it. Because a lot of times what will happen is those homes will end up firing those individuals if we find information or concerns, because homes still...
The liability.
Well, they still want to make sure people are being taken care of. I mean, as
And
much as they are a business, they're still caring for people.
When we go out on a complaint, when our adult home specialist goes out, they have to leave with, they can do a plan with them, a safety plan with them.
Plan of protection.
A plan of protection. So if there's a named individual, then they have to make plans to ensure the safety of the residents.
What keeps you up at night?
There are lots
I know
that keep me up at
I know for me,
night.
like with the exploitation cases and some of the abuse cases, usually you can find it. You can figure out who the perpetrator is. Criminals in general don't seem to always be that smart, especially when it comes to money. There's always a trail. You got to find it. You got to chase it down. Once you find it, you can get that information to the right people, and something can be done about it.
All right, I'm going to put some numbers that folks can call, national organizations that they can call if they suspect there's a problem. But I want to leave with the viewers the most important piece of information that came out of our discussion today. If there's an abuse going on, call the police. and then let the police call the Department of Social Services so you can bring all of these resources to bear on fixing the problem.
If you see it, report it. Don't wait for somebody else to. I'd rather get 4 reports in a situation and have us go look on it than somebody just assume somebody else was going to make it. So if you see something, make a report.
And even if you just suspect it, please
Absolutely.
call in.
You know,
and we'll
if somebody
take it from there.
if somebody's watching this show and they call in sometime later today or tomorrow, we've provided a great service to our community. Thank you both for coming on today.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Julie Shane, welcome to the program. Tell me what you do.
We are funded by a grant from the federal government under the Administration on Community Living, and we are a resource center for all types of elder abuse and elder justice issues. So if a person just wants to get some information about types of elder abuse, people tend to go toward financial, but of course it encompasses physical and emotional and sexual and neglect. We have all those resources for you. You can call us, email us, get with us on social media, and give us your questions, your concerns. And although we are not investigatory, we will certainly get you to the proper people in anywhere throughout the country that you might need.
Julie, what are some of the telltale signs that a senior is being abused? What if I'm visiting grandma in the nursing home, what should I look for?
If you know this person and you're just, something just doesn't seem right, they're not eating, they're malnourished, they look thinner. Social isolation is probably the biggest risk factor for elder abuse. And when you get somebody in charge and you think, oh, this is great, now I've got this caregiver in here and I don't have to visit or come by as call as often, that's where that perpetrator really gets their in, and they start telling the person, I'm the only one who cares about you, nobody else cares, your kids just want your money, this whole conversation that goes on. And people wonder, how can that happen? I care about my family member, my loved one, but we have to remember that sometimes if your eyesight is decreasing and or your hearing, your world is starting to become a lot smaller. And if you can't drive, again, you are more isolated and dependent on other people. So that's where this all builds it up, this relationship. Families just need to call, be connected, show you care as much as you can. I know my family's far away, but there are ways. And now with technology, even if you can have something like we're doing here with Skyping or which isn't easy for a lot of older people to do, but it's getting better, and there's some devices out there that really can keep you more in touch, and that's key.
Is there any advice that you might want to share with all of our senior viewers or those who are taking care of seniors?
I really just want people to know that there are supports in their community to reach out to that are credible and that can help them. Your local senior center, your local, it's usually called an area agency on aging or office on aging. Go through credible agencies, check things out, ask one more question. The old adage, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is, just really does hold up. And so just, try to have a good support system as you can. It's not easy, but somebody trusted, neighbor or if your family's far away, and reach out to them first.
Julie Shane, I can't thank you enough. This has been such an informative segment. I really appreciate your coming on and sharing this insight with our viewers. I know that there's a lack of information, so much misinformation, that I'm sure there's a lot of intrinsic value in this discussion that we've had today for all of our viewers. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for hosting us. Thank you.
Jean, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being here. You're the Vice President of Public Policy for AARP. I want to jump right in with the most important question on my mind as it relates to this show is you have a senior, they want to decide whether to move into assisted living or a nursing home or just a retirement village. What are some of the things that they need to know while they're making that decision?
There's a couple of things that I think is important to kind of think about for anyone who's thinking about what senior options you might need, particularly as you age. One is thinking about exactly what your needs are. What are your current needs? relative to what you might need as you age. If you're extremely healthy, you might want to think about potentially some independent living options. That could be receiving services in your home. That could be potentially joining a independent living community for people who are 55 and older. That could mean going to your adult day center to get services. So that's just one option. The other option that I think is extremely important to think about, in addition to just what is your current health needs and what you might need as you age, is the fact that if you think that you might need some assistance with cooking or laundry, or some assistance with maybe eating or bathing or dressing, then you might want to look at assisted living options. Those are designed to help you as you age, particularly if you have some needs that you need to address. The other option is the fact that if you are in a situation as a family member and you think your mom or your dad or either has or is going through some cognitive changes, you may want to explore memory care units. Or in some cases, if you think that you want that peace of mind where you want to be able to live in a community where you can stay in that community for all of your life and have your needs met as either your health declines or there's a disability, you may want to look at continuing care retirement communities. I say all this to say that in addition to exploring what your current health and potential needs might be as you age, the other thing that you want to take into account is the cost. How much would these different types of options cost you? The current rate for nursing home care in this country is roughly around $100,000. When you look at assisted living, you're looking at around $45,000. And for 30 hours of home care, meaning someone's coming to your home to provide you with services, you're looking around roughly $34,000. So you have the option in terms of exactly what are the things that I would need as I age. Then you also have to take into account what are the cost implications and the trade-offs of some of those decisions. And then the other thing I would say is the fact that it's important as older adults and also as families is to really have a plan in place. At AARP, we have a document, a guide, and some checklists and some resources around caring and preparing to care. And what that does is basically provide you with a roadmap to really kind of start planning and having those conversations. I think the other thing that's extremely important, along with not just the guide in terms of planning to care, is understanding exactly what are your preferences and what are the things that you value, and whether or not those different options align with those preferences and those values. We at AARP always encourage our members and also the 50 plus and their families to actually go visit some of these communities. Spend some time in the communities. Talk to the residents. Talk to the staff. Ask the staff to see the annual survey inspection reports. Talk to the staff and get a sense as to exactly how long have they been there? What's the turnover? All of those are very good questions to ask, and we have some resources at AARP to help you make those type of decisions.
Who knew that AARP provided all of these services to AARP members? I just think it's outstanding that you're doing all of this work.
Well, thank you so much. Our job as an organization and working very closely with our volunteers is to be relevant and to be impactful and to help older adults and their families with the resources that they need when they need them in order to make informed decisions. So we greatly appreciate this conversation, and we want to thank you for bringing some of these issues to light.
You bet. You have a good day. Thank you so much. Zane Bennett is the executive director of Plantation Village, which is a facility that has independent living, assisted living, and it has skilled nursing care. Give me an overview of what someone's options are, Zane. I'm tired of cutting the grass. I'm tired of living in this big house. I don't want to cook anymore. I want somebody else to cook my meals. It sounds really attractive to me to live in a facility, and I'm sure to my wife, to live in a facility where everything is done. And whatever time you have, it can be spent on your hobbies, on whatever it is you really want to do, travel. And I assume when you say independent living, you can still drive, you can do whatever you want.
Certainly. Yeah, you can do all of those things. So we have residents at Plantation Village that still own RVs, who still own boats and trailer those boats to the water. We have a resident who owns his own wood shop. We have residents who still work, some that are still professors at the university. We have a group of residents that are brewing their own beer at Plantation Village. So what we have given them in independent living is the time back.
When do you have to move from independent living to, let's say, assisted living? I'm sure there's some criteria. For example, you can't feed yourself anymore, or what are some of the criteria?
Not feeding yourself would be more characteristic of skilled nursing, but if we wanted to kind of go through the pattern there. So what you would see is somebody in independent living is living independently. So they're doing their own shopping, they're getting themselves from point A to point B, they're going to dinner, or they're making a sandwich at lunch. Then what we see is in assisted living, they no longer have the ability to live independently. A good litmus test is that if a resident, for 7 days, the family went away and didn't call them and didn't check on them, would they be able to live safely in their environment? And if the answer is no, it's probably time for assisted living. Now, if somebody needs skilled nursing, they probably have a more complex medical situation where they need 24-hour nursing services. So maybe it's the complexities post-stroke. Maybe it's assistance with not just bathing, but toileting and eating. That's going to be more in line with skilled nursing.
Right. What's the biggest advantage in moving into a facility like Plantation Village? I'm thinking about moving in. What do I have to know in order to make this decision?
I think the biggest advantage is the social aspect. So if you have a parent, or if you yourself, if your biggest activity is sitting at home by yourself memorizing the TV guide, then a place like Plantation Village is probably for you, where you can get involved with one of the 27 committees or clubs, where you can meet like-minded individuals, or you can stroll on one of our walking paths. So that's the biggest benefit. And we see that. We see people come in who have lost weight, maybe they've lost a loved one, and they're not involved, and they haven't got out much. And the family tells us this, and a year later the family's surprised when they have lunch with their loved one or with their parent, and they see all their friends, and they see that they're involved in clubs. And we had a resident recently who has become a great artist who had never painted before. So we have the kind of the wine and design classes where residents can learn how to paint. So all of that is there.
What's your website in case somebody wants to get a hold of you?
It's plantationvillagerc.org. Also, if there are questions about different levels of care, we're happy to be that expert. If it's not Plantation Village, we can refer you to somewhere else.
That's great. Well, listen, Knight, thank you so much for your time today. And I'm sure our viewers have learned a great deal.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Chuck.
We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
We've learned that over half the people turning age 65 will need some type of long-term care services in their lifetimes. And 14% will stay in long-term care for more than 5 years. When people reach the age of retirement, there are many decisions to make going forward. But perhaps the most important decision a retiree has to make is choosing their living arrangements. Most retirees want to stay in their home as long as they are physically able. But what happens when aging in place is no longer possible? So what is the answer? It all starts with educating ourselves. Speak with an elder law attorney near you to strategize a plan for your later years. Ensure your powers of attorney are the right people to look after your estate. Don't be afraid to establish a relationship with your local Department of Social Services, and ensure you take the time to properly tour multiple senior living options before deciding. If you or a loved one have been the victim of elder abuse, contact your local law enforcement agency and Department of Social Services. Don't be afraid to speak up. Your voice could prevent the same thing from happening to many others. And you don't have to go through the trauma alone. That's all for this episode of What's the Matter? I'm Chuck Whitlock, and remember, if it matters to you, it matters to us. See you next time.